All right. They promised me pyrotechnics. Okay, they promised me pyrotechnics. Maybe next time, Letha. Um, okay. Did you actually ask the Kennedy Center? Oh God, I wish you had. That would have been so cool. Yeah, I was thinking about how to introduce myself on a stage with as much gravitas as the Kennedy Center, and so I thought, yes, ACDC's TNT is the way to go. So I'm here to talk to you about science comedy for the next 20 minutes. They gave 10 minutes to Bob Metcalf, the inventor of Ethernet and the founder of this conference. So, what that says about science comedy, I leave up to you. For me, I think that means it is valuable as two Ethernet cable inventions. So, here we are. All right, so the theme of this conference is nuance. So, I thought I would start with a very nuanced opinion for you all. Scientists are too boring. It's an epidemic. It needs to be fixed. That's the subject. That's the problem my presentation is trying to address. This is the face of boredom, y'all. I just discovered they have a laser pointer. It's amazing. This is the face of boredom. And as we know, a lack of humor can cause boredom, and boredom has consequences. Several missed opportunities. Thought this was Kennedy Center themed. So this is true, especially in science. We're seeing that as jargon increases, citations decrease. So there's a sort of mythology about sounding erudite. You need more jargon, but it's in fact the opposite. And it's on the rise. Jargon is on the rise, and readability is suffering as a consequence over the years to date. And so it's a problem. It's a problem to address. People would rather administer electric shocks to themselves and be bored. This is an actual study done in 2014 where 42 people, I'm guessing undergraduates, were asked, would you rather sit alone in this room with nothing to do or administer electric shocks to yourself? And most people took the shocks. I know. And by most people, I am, of course, referring to the men in the group. It was 2/3 of the men and 1/4 of the women took the electric shock. So, yeah, boredom has massive consequences. And humor combats boredom. So if the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, I do think that the opposite of humor isn't tragedy, it's boredom. And boredom is a problem that humor can combat. In my comedy sets, there have been only very few instances where people preferred to administer electric shocks to themselves. So it is a way of helping. It's also helpful for ideas. It could make you appear, comedy can make you appear confident and competent. Also, entering to ACDC's TNT, might I recommend, makes you appear confident. Audience retain more information and longer when they enjoy receiving it. And laughter increases energy, interest, and approval in a topic. Also, stories improve memory sevenfold when information is put in a story. And what is comedy if not a story with something unexpected at the end? So, yeah. All right, so that's where I come in. That's me with my hero and my former boss and my mentor, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, I love Neil. He's a great guy. That's before and after he met me. Clearly, you see the change. I wrote for his show Star Talk for a number of years, and he deeply inspired me. And so in the field of science and comedy, so I started my own company. Here's me pointing to a whiteboard. Here's me with a laser pointer pointing to me, pointing on a whiteboard. Now you know I'm a professional human being. And we are comedy consultants who make people, mostly scientists, more entertaining. We believe in fun, most importantly. These are our values. We believe in shaking hands, and of course, teamwork. This is my team, some of my team. So yeah, that's what we do. Starting off, what is lamer than science comedy? I asked this question because this is the average kind of joke most people think about when they think about science comedy. Two atoms walk into a bar, and one says, "I think I lost an electron," and the other says, "Are you sure?" And the first guy says, "I'm positive." Yeah. Good job. You win the presentation. Okay, so this is a terrible joke objectively. What is wrong with this joke? Well, number one, it's formulaic. You know, we've seen this formula a million times, very predictable. And comedy is all about the unexpected. Secondly, it's just a generic pun. It's just a homonym on positive. Also, it's kind of childish, not gonna lie. So in general, not a fan. But most damningly of all, this is a very scientific presentation, so keep up. Most damningly of all, it's a dad joke. So this is the aftermath of a dad joke. We see the wreckage. Now, what is the hallmark of a dad joke? The hallmark of a dad joke is that it only amuses the dad. And comedy is the opposite of that. It's about building bridges, people. It's about reaching out to your audience. It's about empathy, not schadenfreude, as we see here. So, how do you do science comedy and, most importantly, not suck, as in the dad jokes? Well, you're in luck. I'm here because I'm presenting the principles of SciComm, science communication or science comedy. So here are some, this is less of a why there's a problem presentation and a little bit more of a what to do about it, little how-to guide for you guys. So first tip is about the secret of comedy. The secret to comedy is no. Get out. No. It's timing. There it is. Timing. No, the secret to comedy is timing. One of the most important things before you even make a joke is to ask yourself when. So there are many different places where you could tell a joke. Some people think there are inappropriate times and places. I disagree. I think it's all about, as we say in comedy, reading the room. It's not about the situation or the time, it's about the people. So that's the first and most important tip I can give you. All right, secondly, keep it simple. Or in other words, it's paramount to keep one's discourse straightforward, that is to say elementary. Yeah, not any of this. Keep it simple, because if you don't, you think you look like this, and you really look like that. We've all been to those academic conferences where somebody looks like a conspiracy theorist. So keep it simple. Extra information can actually be dangerous. So like here's a famous logic puzzle. This is Lucy. Lucy went to college and she majored in math and she aced statistics. Is Lucy more likely to be an artist or a poker playing artist? So in studies, when people have been asked this, they're far more likely to say a poker playing artist, but in fact, she's far more likely just to be an artist, probabilistically speaking. But because of the extra information, we are biased and choose incorrectly. So info can be dangerous, so keep it contained. Good. I'm so glad you guys like cat gifs. You are going to be so happy with this presentation. All right, stay tuned. Next up, be relatable. This is a classic. So when talking about, for example, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, not many know too much about it, but if you're talking about not knowing the exact velocity and location of an electron, maybe compare it to how you can never find the dang TV remote, right? It's a very relatable example. When talking with young people, avoid references to Greta Garbo and instead talk about Chris Pratt, preferably shirtless. So yeah, be relatable to your audience. The information hamburger. This is a classic 3-step process. Number 1, tell them what you're going to tell them. 2, tell them. 3, tell them what you told them. That was the technique of the information hamburger, a 3-step process for helping the audience retain information. See what I did there? Gonna be a lot of those types of jokes. All right, metaphors are your friend. Yeah, that guy gets it. Metaphors are your friend. They are a bridge to understanding. But let's see. But be careful with them. There's the classic, like, calling the heart a pump, the digestive system plumbing, very useful visual metaphors. But be careful about mixing your metaphors. A lot of people accuse me of mangling my metaphor use, but in my opinion, you can't make an omelet without beating a few dead horses. Another peril of metaphors is they can actually lead you down the wrong thought process. So a lot of us were taught atoms are sort of like planets orbiting around the sun. But as you get up to more advanced physics, you learn that electrons are a little bit more like a cloud of probability in their rotation around a nucleus. So watch out with your metaphors that they are actually on track. Bad metaphor example. Here's a very bad metaphor that I came across recently. I'm going to read it out to you. Sarah's job is like a therapist in that she gets paid to do what most people do for free. This quote comes from my mom. And there's a couple of reasons why it's a bad metaphor. It's kind of wordy. Let's see. It's you have to actually explain why the thing is being compared to the other thing. Most importantly, it's actually a simile. And finally, it's hurtful. So my tip for this one is keep your metaphors harm-free. Use visuals. That's a classic. People are much more likely to retain information with a vivid and weird visual. So for a client once who did a contact tracing app to explain it instead of talking about the process, we actually visualized it with emojis, what contact tracing actually looked like. It was far more effective at getting people to understand the benefits of contact tracing. And as we know, that all stopped COVID, so you're welcome. Rule of threes. Okay, so this is a classic in comedy. It's also just a good, presentation technique. It's like the information hamburger. People are more likely to remember things in threes. Also, for comedy, it's useful. It takes 2 to establish a pattern, so the third thing can upend things. And it's useful. It is helpful, it's engaging, and it will get you laid. So that's the rule of threes for you. For example, for a client who is into geothermal energy, we wrote this joke for them. There are 3 groups of people against geothermal energy: environmentalists, competitors, and people recently dumped by geologists. So classic 1-2 punch. Have confidence. So you guys are probably familiar with the Dunning-Krueger effect. Probably, unfortunately, too familiar. This is when people who don't know very much, they have a spike in their knowledge as they get very cursory information. And then they have the valley of despair. This is also known as grad school. And then as they sort of dig themselves out of the hole, they get more competence, their confidence increases. So that is the Dunning-Krueger effect. And it is, let's see, yes, invented by Dunning and Krueger, these guys. All right, keep them guessing. Think somebody's going to understand this next slide. Keep them guessing. So what's great about presentations is that nobody's going to sue you if you lie to them. That's legal advice. Take that for what you will. No, keep them guessing. So what that means is put some playful lies in your presentation to keep people on their toes. It's actually like one of my favorite quotes about this is drop in an occasional lie to engage your audience. You can't just believe everything you see in a PowerPoint. This was, of course, said by Susan B. Anthony. So, for example, earlier, I think some of you caught this, when I was talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect, I was actually showing a picture of Siegfried and Roy. Some people got that. You guys are the first group of people when I tested this out to identify Siegfried and Roy. Good job. All right. So keep them guessing. Lie to your audience. Then next one, be self-deprecating. That's useful. So it kind of combats the be confident part. So for example, earlier when I was talking about my mom, it's a great way of bringing me down to earth if I seem too grandiose. I'm a humble person with a disapproving mom who encourages me to go to law school every day, like all of you. So be self-deprecating. Examples. This is a classic. Instead of talking about things in the abstract, use examples. For example, if you're trying to explain generative AI, for example, and you're explaining diffusion models, instead of just talking about the process in a vacuum, explain it with regards to generating an actual image, like an image of a cat. But it's even better if the thing you are producing at the end is really vivid, like this very stupid bird. Does Dorian here, can you identify? Yeah, the Potu. Nice. And Dorian, it's correct that this is, scientifically speaking, this is also the objectively dumbest looking bird. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. It's a metaphor. Good job. Oh, that's a simile, though. Get out. All right, so that's the Putu bird. Another thing you could do with examples is you can actually start with the example and work backwards. So here is AI doing its best job, making hands. A good presentation about diffusion models might say, how did we get here? What is going on here? And then you work backwards. Yes, so just start off with the example, then work backwards. It's a classic. Malcolm Gladwell uses it all the time. All right, absurd application. This is when you talk about a process that is also kind of boring, but you apply it to an absurd situation. This is a guy using the geothermal heat from a volcano to bake a pizza. Another example of this used extremely effectively is this paper about statistical mechanics and epidemiology, but they use it to explain the zombie apocalypse. So very useful. The paper went viral and people learned a lot about statistical mechanics. Absurd application. All right, next one, Chekhov's gun. Okay, so this one's kind of complicated. So if you can sit through this this principle, I will reward you guys by showing you a GIF of a kitten discovering it has feet. All right, so that's what's in the balance. Chekhov's gun. This is a dramatic principle by which Anton Chekhov, this guy, barrel of laughs, said that if you put a gun in a scene in a play, it's essentially a promise to the audience that it's going to go off later. And it's a way of increasing suspense in the scene, and it works very effectively. But we decided to make this Chekhov's fun. And this principle is about making fun promises and keeping them. So for example, earlier, when I said if you could get through this principle, I would show you a funny image. Here it is. What? Oh my God. So make promises and keep them. All right. Next up is everybody's favorite, of course, wordplay. That is sarcasm. I am not a fan. I am not a fan because most puns are just predictable homonyms. Like I was saying earlier, they are also a favorite of the dad demographic. But we have them to thank for generations of anthropologists and astronomers. We all start off as 13-year-old boys at some point. And then there's sometimes kind of fun, like this is a character from Arrested Development who is literally working blue. All right, so puns. Sometimes they're okay. Here's one that I liked. Puns are generally, they're better if they're sort of like topical or there's innuendo. There's something else besides the homonym. So here's something I found recently that was okay. Neutrinos, they're not positive, they're not negative. They're more like Jonathan Van Ness, which is to say non-binary. So more, weren't expecting it, a little more topical. All right, next one, callbacks and running gags. These are comedy terms. So a callback is something that goes, it's just one callback is a reference to one thing that happened earlier in the presentation, and callbacks can lead to a positive experience. See, yeah, that's right. The groans are correct. But that is what a callback is. What's useful about it is it can give the presentation a sense of cohesion and reward the audience for listening throughout it. A running gag is like the GIFs of cats that I have been peppering in throughout the presentation. I know. I love this one. Let's just watch him fail together. And he's almost there. No! Okay. All right, interactivity. Okay, who here knows what interactivity is? Yeah. Yeah, interactivity is breaking the fourth wall, and it is engaging the audience. It's really useful. You're switching learning styles. You're going from auditory to kinesthetic, and you're getting people engaged, switching things up. So, as an example of interactive learning, I want everybody right now to check under your seats. Everybody do it. You will find nothing. Because the prize is the journey, ladies and gentlemen. It was never about what was under your seats. It was about the friends we made along the way. All right. So in conclusion to this presentation, don't do these tips just because they are effective. Do them because I told you to do them. No. Do them because they're fun. Have fun. Really, really, really have fun. You chose to devote your life to this industry. There's a lot of joy there. Try to connect your message to the joy that got you interested in this field to begin with. I really mean that. Life is too short to be boring. And then finally, keep in touch. Let's help prove my mom wrong and show that people actually care about science comedy. Thank you, everybody.